Johannes Reuchlin was a German diplomat and a great intellectual. He studied Hebrew when he was still in Germany. He learned with a rabbi called Yechiel Lohans in Frederick II's court. He was a physician there. And later he was sent on a diplomatic mission in 1498 to Rome. And while he was there, he turned to Sforno to ask him to teach him. What he taught him was subject to much dispute and much discussion by academics. The truth about it is certainly what Saverio Campanini, who's a great professor in the field, who checked Reuchlin's books, and what he came up with was that Sforno probably taught Moreh Nevuchim, the Maimonides guides. Reuchlin was interested in Judaic studies, first of all because the idea was at the time that truth lies in various places of ancient wisdom, and especially as Judaism is the source for all other monotheistic religions. So the war against the Jewish book goes back to the early years of Christianity. Most famous was in the Middle Ages the burning of the Talmud in Paris, which actually brought to the end the Jewish community in France, because once you have no books, once you have no Talmud, so you don't have any study and you don't have any rabbis, and everyone who knew anything about the Jewish religion had to leave to other places to be able to study. The problem of Christians with the Talmud is because they understand that the Talmud is a source of strength to the Jewish nation. But they would also say that that's the reason that the Jews don't recognize the truth of Christianity. So they often tried to wage war against the Talmud. And in Germany, following the acclamations of a Jewish apostate who was actually a petty criminal, who to save his skin became Christian and then decided that he was a big rabbi and he understands in the Talmud Johannes Pfefferkorn, so as two Johannes fighting one against each other. And that's where Johannes Reuchlin came out with all his might and all his knowledge to save the Talmud from being burning in Germany. Right at the beginning of the book affair, the books of the Jewish community in Frankfurt were taken in custody by the church, and there was a committee that was supposed to verify the claims that the Talmud contains something against Christianity. At this point, Pfefferkorn, who was the instigator, wrote a book proving as if the Talmud contains a lot of blasphemy against Christianity and against the founder of Christianity. And Johannes Reuchlin did something which at the time was a very, very brazen act, and he actually printed a book against Pfefferkorn's book, which was countering the claims of Pfefferkorn and trying also to prove that Pfefferkorn was an absolute ignorant who didn't even know the Talmud. It actually carried on going back and forth for some years. The Pope at the beginning did not get involved, and then when he actually did get involved, and there was another committee, and eventually Reuchlin was part of the committee who was supposed to give the final verdict, and he was actually the only one who understood Hebrew in that committee, but he stood firm, stood his ground, though he was going through a lot of persecution, which brought to his early death. But eventually the decree was rescinded, and the books in Germany were not burnt. Reuchlin cannot be called a Jew lover, though he respected Jews that had knowledge and could help him with their knowledge, and he wasn't a rabid anti-Semite, but he was still a man of his time, which usually European at the time would not be, cannot be accused of loving Jews. But he understood that the science of the Talmud and of general Jewish knowledge contains a lot of truths. A few times when they were speaking about expulsions of Jews from Germany or from Italy, Reuchlin spoke out very strong against it, stating that if no one here will know Hebrew, all those truths will be lost. So it wasn't really the Jews that he was trying to save, but their books, but he viewed the Jews as the keepers of those books and that knowledge. And he understood also that lots of that knowledge was oral knowledge, which could not be it was not committed to writing. So that's the reason that he saw it as so important to save the Talmud and to save actually the Jews also from being expulsed from Europe.